That was probably the strangest thing that's ever happened to me, period. And yet I just put it out of my mind and didn't tell anyone. I didn't think about it. And when it finally came up again, um, I was working. I'm a massage therapist, and I was working, treating a client. We were just chit chatting, and it just came out. It just like came out in random conversation, and I started telling this story, and I had to catch myself because she started getting like a little weird about it. And I was like, of course she is. This is fucking weird. Like, why, why am I just casually telling someone this right now as though it's a casual thing to tell? A, and B, why haven't I told anyone up until now? Like, why haven't I been thinking about this?
Yes, and many children see them too. About 75% of the world's children today are being born with etheric vision. And when your children talk with people and have daydream playmates, the chances are they are actually speaking to some of these people. Because these angels or angelic forces or nature spirits, as they're often called, will often make themselves seen.
And all of a sudden I hear him go, whoa, or, something like that. So I look up. And as I look up, I see this thing.
And I said, I've never seen a butterfly like you before.
I know that the paranormal is real. Listen.
As soon as I spoke to it, it turns around and makes eye contact with me, and then it stands upright.
And it was at that moment that I saw it was like an orange light appear above this row of trees. From this sort of orange light, this thing appeared. Its wings were actually like sycamore leaf shaped.
And I started talking to them. I'm like, hi, are y'all the dwarves? And I would hear whispers that would say, hi, yeah, you want to play? And it wasn't just my imagination. And I had told them, I'm like, my dwarves, they like beer, And my dad's like, yeah, sure, your dwarves like beer. And they were holding a conversation, and his beer slid upwards instead of downwards, how the house was tilted. And him and my brothers jumped up.
So I stopped calling out Adam, and I'm just kind of, my mind draws a blank, and I stop behind that tree stump. I'm pretty close to it now because I took a few steps forward, and I see this thing.
Welcome everybody tonight to Fascinating Fae. Tonight, we're traveling to Nova Scotia to talk with Megan. Megan, how are things going up in Canada tonight?
They're pretty great. How are things in Costa Rica?
Can't complain. Well, Megan, I appreciate you being here. And as a new listener to the show, you're probably familiar with this part by now, but I'll still ask your consent and permission here. Is it okay if I take a minute and just kind of explain the format of the show for you before we get going?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you very much. I usually spend about 1 minute doing this at the start of every episode because, in part, you never know who's dropping in, and I like to remain consistent. So the first thing I like to say about the show process is there's not really an emphasis here on this show about convincing me or the audience of anything. I take that, emphasis away to disempower, the forces that limit intuition and connection and the real telling of the story. Because if you're so focused on I want you to believe me, you're not going to tell me the more complete elements of the story. So please know it's just great enough to hear the story. You don't have to worry about making anybody believe anything. It's not important.
Cool.
And that's not to dismiss the reality of these events for everyone listening. I say that to create comfort. That's purely the reason I say that. And it's the way I want to receive the information. The other thing that I like to say is it's brave to come on the show. You know, in my personal life, I've suffered consequences from openly speaking about this subject matter. I've, you know, talked extensively on the show about my friend DK and the challenge that having experiences and feeling different, you know, and, you know, struggling to fit that all in can bring. Part of the bravery of coming on the show is I know that everyone who comes forward is tackling with that stuff and is still coming forward to talk to me. So I want to acknowledge bravery for what it is. It's hard to talk about weird stuff, and I do think it's brave of you to come and talk to me today. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. I also just wanted to say that I noticed I have heard you bring up your friend DK a few times, and I'm really wanted to say I'm sorry for what happened to DK.
Oh, thank you. It's June 1st was 11 years.
Oh, wow.
So that just happened a couple days ago. And it's always a tough time. And it's really sweet of you to say that. I really appreciate that. That builds trust right off the top between the two of us. Thanks for doing that. That's great.
Yeah, no problem.
The last thing here is just a note on my interview style so that you don't think I'm leaving you hanging out there in the air. I try to just kind of not interrupt my guests, something I've learned from many of my favorite podcast hosts. You know, the way that I like to listen is when the host just kind of shuts up until he's needed. And so, you know, I'll clear the air and allow you all the space and time you need to weave the story for us today. Now, I know a little bit about what, you know, initially connected us, and I'm super excited to, you know, hear that part of your story when you get to it, because it relates to some stuff in episode 6 of this podcast series. And I've not yet heard somebody come forward with a teaser like that. So I'm locked in. I'm just a listener of the show too, don't forget. So I'm ready to hear your story just like everybody else. And if you would be so kind, you know, now's your chance to bring us all there with you, please.
Sure. So it was, this story, I think his name was Ezra, in maybe Auckland, with the bag. It was a plastic bag that turned into a creature, or a creature that turned into a plastic bag. And I just thought, wow, I have a plastic bag story, and it's probably my craziest story. Weird things have been happening to me my whole life. Like, I've got every flavor of paranormal experience you can imagine. I've got ghosts, I have poltergeists, which recently I'm starting to think might have been more fae. I always framed these experiences as poltergeist, but now when I think back, especially since listening to your podcast, I'm like, this actually could be fairy stuff. And then the story I'm about to tell you, I call it the garbage bag girls. I still don't have any clue what they were. Maybe they were fairies or something like that, but yeah, there was one other story I had heard on a podcast, and I think it was either the Sasquatch Chronicles or the Confessionals. I can't remember which one, where a man driving through the mountains somewhere stopped for a garbage bag in the road, and the garbage bag transformed into a deer and ran off. And I've searched for that episode for years, and I can't find it. I wish I could. But so now, yeah, I'm the third transforming plastic bag story that I know of. So, and then just before I start the story, I want to say I've had this recent revelation too about all of my experiences, my whole life, where I know they talk about like these things happening sort of during in liminal space, like during transitions in life. And I know that some people say that's why the poltergeist activity happens a lot of the times with like adolescent or young girls going through puberty. That's like a demographic that it happens to. And that was certainly my case too. But not only that, like it seems like every time there's a spike in paranormal activity or just strange activity in my life, like there tends to be some trauma or some big change going on, like one of the two. Um, and yeah, I recently heard a podcast where they were talking about how trauma itself can sort of crack open uh, sort of your doors of perception in some kind of way that lets other experiences in. So I just thought that was kind of cool. And the garbage bag girls, I just call it that because that's what they were. That was definitely a time in my life that I was going through some big changes. So I think that could have been part of it, part of my perception being open. But this was very real. I know you said not to try to convince people that it was real. I think I'm more trying to convince myself because it is so wacky. Like, it's super out there. But I definitely have no attachment to being believed. I think for the longest time I didn't talk about these things because not out of fear of like not being believed, but just like it's kind of a bummer to some part of me that wants things to make sense. And like I always felt if there's no conclusion, like if we can't reach a conclusion, what's the point of even talking about it? It was always such a big bummer to me that I never felt compelled to talk about it because it was just well, it'll end in a big nothing. We'll never have a conclusion. What's the point? It's a waste of everyone's energy. But I feel totally different now. I feel like the more you talk about it and explore the wonder of it all, the more you find like-minded people. And just like having that sense of wonder in life is worth it in and of itself. Like just to keep that alive. So I'm not so attached to having things tied up in a neat bow anymore. I'm okay with it not being explainable. So anyway, here we go. It's super weird. So this is like, what year would this have been? Maybe 2021-ish. And it's like late August, late summer, and it's a very quiet night. And I live like right on the highway, basically. It's a rural route. I'm very rural. I'm surrounded by woods and trees. Like it's super quiet where I live. But this night was extra quiet. And I know that they say that that can be a thing too, and it has a name, but I don't remember what the name is. But it was super quiet, too quiet. And I just put the kids to bed, and it was like 11 o'clock at night. And I had my like portable AC unit in my window, so I could clearly hear anything going on outside. And I was just about to put myself to bed for the night. And I heard like very clearly the slapping, what I assumed to be like the slapping of flip-flops on the pavement coming towards my house and chit-chatting. So it sounded to me like two teenage girls, what I assumed to be teenage girls or young girls, excuse me, just like giggling and incessant chit-chatting like teenage girls do, but I couldn't make out any of the words. And then the slapping of the flip-flops. And so I'm just hearing this, and all of a sudden all the noise stops, and it stops right in front of my house. And so of course I went to look because I was just curious why the girls stopped right in front of my house. So I look out, I'm in my hallway, and I have like a window overlooking the street at the end of the hallway. So I'm just kind of leaning against the window, expecting to see two girls standing there, and I see nothing except these two garbage bags on the side of the road opposite my house. One of them was black and one of them was like clear or white. And so I was just sitting there or leaning against the window, and I was just sort of contemplating these garbage bags, just thinking, oh, it's not garbage day tomorrow. And I don't even usually put my garbage there. And I was thinking, why would my neighbors put their garbage there? I wasn't really like overly concerned, but I was just sleepily thinking about these garbage bags. And then in front of my eyes, the garbage bags started to morph, and they grew taller, and they morphed into two what I assume were girls, because in my head, I don't know, I already had like teenage girls in my head, and these were like two slight, smallish people, and one of like the white garbage bag was wearing a white hoodie, and the black garbage bag was wearing a black hoodie. And when I say they morphed, they didn't like shimmer or go opaque or like there was like no special effect. I cannot describe the way they changed other than to say like maybe I've seen that in a movie where like a solid form just turns into another solid form without any weird shimmer effect or anything like that happening. And I can't describe it. There's really no words for what happened. And once they became people, they just stood stock still, but the way they were standing still was too still. Like, I don't think people can stand that still. They didn't move a muscle, like not a fiber on their clothes moved, and they were just staring straight ahead down the side of my house. So they were like kind of in front of my house, but off to the side a little. And they had their heads down, so I couldn't see their face, and their hoods were covering their heads. But I could tell that they were arms by their sides, shoulder to shoulder, standing stock still, staring down the side of my house. And for some strange reason, instead of thinking or worrying or wondering why I just saw garbage bags transform into people, my mind immediately went to, what are they looking at? Maybe they have friends in my yard who are getting up to no good, and I better go see what they're looking at. So I ran to the other end of the house to look out the back window just to see what was going on, and there was nothing there. And while I'm looking out the back window, I hear the flip-flops slapping on the pavement again, moving along in the same direction. They were like moving off in the other direction, and the chit-chatting again. And so I ran back to the window. Garbage bags are gone, girls are gone, and I can still hear the flip-flops walking off in the other direction. So I'm a little like, obviously a little shaken and a little freaked out, but not nearly as much as I should have been. And oddly enough, I was just going to go back to bed. So I crawl into bed, and I heard, the story goes from like dumb to dumber. I feel silly telling it, really, but I mean, it happened. So I just have to say how it happened. So I heard electronic dance music louder. Like, I don't think sound systems can play music this loud. It was so loud, and it was coming from the neighbor's house, like that was across the street and in the direction that these girls were walking. Electronic dance music starts. It's so insanely loud, and I remember just thinking, well, surely I won't have to do anything about this because some other neighbor is going to complain and that'll take care of it. So the song plays from beginning to end perfectly. One song, beginning to end. And I did get up and look out of my window to look at the house, the direction it was coming in. And there was like multicolored like party lights all through the house, strobing in the windows. And when the music ended, the song ended, the lights stopped, and everything was quiet again. And that was the end of the experience. So I don't know if, and I don't know those neighbors. And the reason I don't know them is because they're quiet. Like, they've never had a party. I see them. I think we've both lived here for around the same amount of time, like probably 10, 11 years. And I've seen them maybe 5 times out in their yard. Like, they're super quiet. They keep to themselves. They've never, if they had a sound system like that, they would have used it. Like, I would know about it. And I wish I did know them, because then I would go and I would have asked them. But I just felt like that's way too weird of a thing to ask people I don't know about. And then what I find even stranger is that I just went back to bed. And then even stranger still is I didn't think about that incident for like months. Like, why? Why? That was probably the strangest thing that's ever happened to me, period. And yet I just put it out of my mind and didn't tell anyone. I didn't think about it. And when it finally came up again, I was working. I'm a massage therapist, and I was working treating a client. We were just chit-chatting, and it just came out. It just, like, came out in random conversation, and I started telling this story, and I had to catch myself because she started getting, like, a little weird about it, and I was like, "Of course she is. This is fucking weird. Like, why why am I just casually telling someone this right now as though it's a casual thing to tell, A, and B, why haven't I told anyone up until now? Like, why haven't I been thinking about this?" It's almost like there was some kind of veil, um, preventing me from thinking about it or talking about it. But then, of course, since that happened, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And um, there's two other incidents I kind of think might be related. So, like, the winter before that happened, I had been taking my dog on a walk around the block, and it was nighttime, and it was quite late, I think. And somebody's house that we were walking by, I noticed with the it had strobing, like crazy strobing lights inside, not multicolored, but just white lights. And I remember being concerned, thinking like, "Is this some kind of security system? Are these people okay?" So I remember messaging one of my other neighbors to ask if he knew them and should I be concerned. And he was just kind of like, he didn't know them, and he was like, "Oh, I don't know what that could be." So I just kind of forgot about it. But I thought, like, is it possible that these beings for a few months were just hanging around my neighborhood, just going into people's houses and having dance parties, like mini dance parties? And then since I've been thinking about fairies recently, it never occurred to me that they could have been fae type beings. But lately, when I think about fairies, I think about, yeah. And I did listen to one of your podcasts recently where you said something about fairies liking raves and liking to party. And I thought, oh my God, well, yeah, maybe they were fairies, and maybe that is exactly what they were doing. Um, and then the other incident that kind of, I think, will definitely ties in is that later on, probably mm, like 4 or 5 months later, um, I had a new puppy, and I took the dog out front for a pee, and it was nighttime again, and I was staring at that house, and I was just kind of thinking about the incident. I um wasn't like asking for any type of proof or like trying to communicate. I was just contemplating the incident, looking at that house, and as I was thinking about it, their porch light started to strobe. And not like flicker, like as though it's gonna go out, but strobe like a strobe light at a dance. And and that's my story. That's the Garbage Bag Girls.
Amazing. Incredible. Wow. Fucking cool. Okay. Megan, congratulations. Your intuition is functioning like perfectly. Because here's what happened. You got to the first juncture of conclusion of your story about, the flip-flops, the murmur, the transforming bags, the, running over to look and see what they were looking at, and then the lights and the song, one perfect song and all this music. And as you finished, when I listen to people, like, I'm really listening, right? And so I was like, okay, what is going on here? And then it just like hit me. I was like, oh, you saw two fairy girls on their way to a fairy party in the other dimension. You saw that. And it was probably an opening in the veil long enough that that one song, was perceived as well. And then as you finish and then go on to just like voice that as intuition, tell me you saw additional lights, and then kind of make that joke again, and then tell me that you're contemplating the event and you see a strobing light in the house that you're looking at as you're holding that thought in your mind. Every single element of that absolutely tracks, and I was overwhelmed with goosebumps when I naturally kind of was receiving something in my head that said, like, yes, there's a fairy party underway, and you caught that. Which is like, okay, so then, like, if you gotta like just like use the stuff we've all learned in the show as a reference point, and you go back to Ezra, when I talked to Ezra back in episode 6, I'm listening to this guy. He's like, this was a fairy, but what he's talking about doesn't sound anything like a fairy, really.
Yeah.
But neither does what you saw. But he knew intuitively that was a fairy, and I think you do too. And the fact that you've both seen them morph into plastic bags is unbelievably fucking remarkable.
It's super weird. And until I heard that episode, nothing had landed or felt right with me about what these things could be. And it's been years. And I haven't really felt a strong yes toward that's what they were. Like, I played with the idea about black eyed kids because I learned after I had that experience, I learned about black eyed kids, but I don't know because it didn't feel like, yeah, it was freaky and I was a little spooked because it was weird, but it didn't feel overwhelmingly negative like people say black eyed kids feel. Um, it didn't feel positive, but it just felt kind of like weird and I was scared.
When I listen to you speak, I mean, part of my tricks of my trade here is I listen to tone and I try to like listen very intensely to how someone is breathing and everything. You didn't sound scared. You sound fascinated is what you sound. And there's other elements of your story too that, like, to me strike me as what would possibly be considered glamoring, you know. Now, again, this is not a folklore-centric podcast about fairies, and I am not an expert. But let's just assume that, like, the concept of glamoring has some truth to it, just for sake of argument and dissecting your experience, right?
Okay.
When you're saying, like, I just oddly went back to bed, I had that happen to me, too, with that fucking owl and that whole night with Grimble Grumble outside of my house. I just went back to sleep, and I still don't really understand that.
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just psychological exhaustion and then your brain's like, yep, nope, bye.
Yeah.
Which is probably what it is. And maybe that's just all we need to understand. But there's always like a part of me and a part of you that I hear reflected when I listen to you speak that is unsettled about the fact that that's what you did, is just go back to bed.
Well, not to mention like that, but also afterward, I didn't think about it. Like, really did not think about it for months. That's weird.
That's also very common. And all the things you said too, like, why am I casually saying it now? Why haven't I talked about it now? These are refrains I've heard on numerous occasions across, you know, this stuff I've been doing here for 3 years, chatting with people. This is an important moment to kind of just insert like something, which is like, I was just recently like rebranding the channel and trying to make it look more clickable so I can get a wider audience. And it's like, how do you fucking frame this stuff? How do you get it visually across in a like representation of like you want someone to click, but that says what I'm trying to say, which is this is serious, real world, non-delusional, real stuff. And the fact that like after 3 years, I finally hear from somebody else who's seen them take an unusual humanoid form, move in an unusual way, and turn into a plastic bag. It's like I've done it long enough that I finally unlocked that level of the game where it's like, aha, you've just given everyone who's listened to this show from the beginning a huge gift, which is like you're circling the wagons on an extremely unusual and esoteric point. And I hope that other people out there will eventually find that episode and this episode who have also seen the same thing. Because one day you're going to get 4, 5, 6, 7 people that have seen them turn into a plastic bag.
Yeah, that's so cool. I hope so.
That's the glamour concept I'm trying to reference, is like, one that comes to mind is like the guy on Mount Shasta who was following the orb. This is a guy I talked to. And he was following it for a long time, and he was like, and then he got around the corner of this like parked van, and on the side of the van there appeared to be a candelabra. And he looked at it and he just said, oh, it's a candelabra. That's what I was following through the woods for 7 minutes, you know, in a chase. Right. And then he was somehow in that moment satisfied by that explanation and that visual and walked away.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, that's an example of like what you would consider glamoring, or the idea of like changing perception. But if you even go back to like episode 1 with Ron, one of the first things he says at the end, it's his last words. He says, "Fairies can appear as anything you imagine, so don't step on that cockroach."
Oh, yeah.
How precognitive was he, and how correct was he? I think he knows what he's talking about. They can kind of appear as anything you imagine. But yours is so uniquely interesting. Can I now take some time to ask you about the details of what you saw?
Yeah, shoot.
Okay. You're a great storyteller, and I really sincerely appreciate you coming on. You sent me some sort of message that was like, "Oh, I don't know if like my story counts," and like here, meanwhile, I'm like biting my nails waiting for the next word. Like, it's such a fucking great story.
Thank you.
You've undervalued your own visual encounter. It's fucking cool as all hell. So, all right, one is like a black garbage bag. One is like clear white. They're across the street from you. I got the scene, but I'm missing a little bit of like the street setting. So Nova Scotia, Canada, for anyone not from Canada, Canada's pretty like, for the most part, the way I'm sensing it is you're kind of in like a slightly not that dense neighborhood.
Totally. Yeah. Yep.
And you've got your standard like 2-lane Canadian connecting roads with sidewalks on either side, and everyone's got driveways and houses, and it's a bunch of stuff like that. Yeah.
Too rural for sidewalks. So I live on like a rural route. So it's sort of a highway, but it's not like a 100 series highway. You go a bit slower, but I'm on a peninsula. And there's only one road going down this peninsula. And there's like a little bit of forest on either side of my road, and there's shore on either side of the forest. And so, yeah, there's like sort of a narrow highway and like a gravel shoulder and forest and like kind of sparse houses. Like there's areas where they're not so sparse, but we're definitely rural.
Okay, so when you're like hearing flip-flops approaching, like how far back from the road is your house is kind of what I'm trying to get a sense of.
I could spit on the road from my house.
I see. Yeah, so you're living in like what I understand to be a typical semi-rural Canadian setting. I got you.
We're in a fishing village.
Okay, and how close is the neighbor's home that you saw the lights subsequently?
It might be like, well, it's right across the road, but diagonal. And they're just as close to the road as I am. So maybe like 50 feet.
Did I just get substantially louder and clearer there for you?
Nope.
Interesting. Weird stuff is happening over here on my end with my microphone as we're talking. I take that to be a huge indication that we're talking about a real fairy encounter. Your intuition, I think, is functioning correctly. I get like weird goosebumps at certain junctures of people's storytelling, and you were like bowling me over there as you were kind of going through these pieces. So I understand the situation better. So your neighbor across the street, you said something to the effect of like, maybe my neighbor put the garbage out, or like, is their house like, where opposite you, or are you kind of looking at some trees across the road?
So directly across the road where the garbage bags were is trees. So the neighbors, yeah, they don't even put their garbage there. They would have to walk down the street a little bit. Garbage doesn't go there.
I mean, I'm looking at the waveform as we're recording, and my microphone is alternately picking me up too loud or not at all. And I can hear this like crackle in my ear that I'm taking to be the signature of the interference I'm visually seeing. It'll be interesting to play this back later and see what's going on there when I listen. Sometimes there's EVPs in the show.
Cool. Electronics really don't love me, by the way. They tend to fail around me, so that could be part of it too.
Of course, that makes sense too. That's a lot of the guests that I have on. Sorry, I blurted that out, but that didn't come across correct. I meant like...
Yeah, I relate to a lot of your guests in a lot of ways. And I'm not a person to get shivers. I kind of envy people when they say I get shivers, because that's not something that happens for me. But when you said that I just witnessed fairies on their way to a fairy party, I got shivers up my spine.
I can't contain them all. I'm glad you got some too. Spread them around. You know what I mean? It's like I can't. I am but one vessel. Everyone listening can take a little dip into that pool. You know, it's there for everyone.
Yeah.
A lot of my guests will write me and say, just before you said that, I was going to say it. And then when you said it, I got goosebumps. And I was like, yes, we're all connecting the dots. I like this excited feeling that comes over me sometimes when I'm doing episodes. Thanks for talking to me tonight. I needed a boost. I'm really having a good time talking to you now. This is great. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Too fucking cool. You did see two fairy girls on their way to the party, and you heard them in the other dimension first. And I think they knew that you spotted them, and so they did exactly what Ezra's did and turned into a plastic fucking bag.
But it wasn't, but the plastic bags turned into the girls. It was the other way around. Oh, you mean before I saw them, they turned into plastic bags.
That's right.
And then like didn't sustain it.
If now I'm getting the goosebumps there too, because it's like imagine it's a claymation video just for a quick fun second, okay? Mm-hmm. Ezra saw a fairy turn into a plastic bag, and then you saw a plastic bag turn into a fairy. It's like one full stop motion sequence. Mm-hmm. To me, your story coming forward is the bookend to Ezra's in terms of that, like, if there was any question that he saw it turn into a plastic bag, that's over now because you saw a plastic bag turn into a fairy.
So I wonder if I just maybe watched too long and like they weren't able to be plastic bags for that long.
Oh, interesting insight. Or like when you say you're pressed up, sorry, let's get into the window for a second. So your window is like, you're kind of pressed up to the window is the way you described it.
I'm just kind of like leaning against the window frame. It's a big window in an old house.
This is at night. So do you have any lights on in the house that would have allowed them to see you?
I don't. Maybe like I do remember when I ran to the back. The bathroom is where I went to look out the window in the back of the house. I turned off the light so I could see if there was anything going on. So maybe light from the bathroom could have illuminated me enough for someone to see.
Like in Ezra's story, it's kind of like it turns into a plastic bag when he's getting too good of a look at it. So it's a defense mechanism. So keeping with the idea that maybe they felt spotted, but before you got there, because they're intuitive, right? They might have like your perception that I'm going to go look for these two girls might have been perceived by them.
Yeah, or maybe they perceived that I heard them because it wouldn't have occurred to me to go look at them until I heard them stop in front of the house. Like if they had just moseyed on by, I wouldn't have gone to look. I would have just thought, oh, two girls just walked by. But what spurred me to go look was that they stopped dead in front of my house, and I thought that was like suspicious.
They might have stopped dead in front of your house because they perceived that you perceived them. And in like
a deer in headlights.
Yes, but keeping in mind that it's not just a deer, it's a telepathic interdimensional. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my hypothesis on your encounter, is that they knew you were coming and they dropped into plastic bag form, which, allowing for many of the themes that have come forward in the show to be true, would mean that among the many other tropes that we have all learned together, one of the playbook tricks of the fairies in the playbook is turning into a plastic bag as a defense mechanism.
I guess.
Why not? The most innocuous, avoidable thing, a plastic bag on the ground, something no one is going to fucking pay attention to. Mm-hmm. Now, when you talk about the morphing and stuff, but before we get into like the morphing technicalities or how that looked, because that could take 10 minutes itself, and I want to do that. I want to understand more about what they started to look like when they took their small You said small person form. How small, how tall did they become? That's my first question, please.
Yeah, I would have, like, I guessed a young teenager, like anywhere between like 12 and 15, and they would have been thin, like their hoodies were floating on them. You can just tell when someone has a small structure under their clothes. So they were small people, um, like probably average height for a young teenager, not overly short or overly tall.
Okay, and as they morphed up out of plastic bag into these forms, they're side by side kind of thing?
Completely, like the plastic bags, if they weren't touching, they were almost touching. And then when they became people, it was the same. Like their shoulders were so close, they might have been touching.
Like two friends walking, getting ready to go to a party, chit-chatting, basically,
Yeah.
who just got stopped in their tracks. Now, okay, what I'm trying to understand, and I know it is extremely difficult to describe fairy stuff, like visually, and I know it's extremely difficult to describe anything visually on an audio medium, right? Like try describing the color blue to a blind person is not a bad analogy for what I'm about to ask you to do. But what did they look like once they were no longer in plastic bag form? Did they look like people? Did they look like people made of the plastic bag? Describe it a bit better for me in the audience, please.
They looked exactly like people, except I couldn't see their face because their hoods were like those oversized hoods that sort of come down over your forehead a little, not like a cloak, like it wasn't like that. It looked like a regular cotton oversized hoodie that a teenager would wear. And their heads were bowed down a little bit, not so far down that they looked like they were looking at the ground. They were clearly looking dead across my lawn, like down the side of my house. Um, but they were bowed down a little bit, and I couldn't get even a hint of a face, not even nothing. So I just saw a hoodie. Um, but the clothes were clothes, like it looked like cotton. It looked like the only thing unrealistic about them is that nothing moved. Like they didn't move, but they weren't plastic.
I see. Okay. I'm glad I asked because in my mind, and this is maybe just a fault of imagination, I was kind of imagining that they didn't get all that big, like maybe 2 feet tall, and that they kind of looked like, so now that I've understood it, it's even more amazing, your story, in fact. Did the clothes look modern? Did the clothes look in any way odd or just like clothes?
Just like clothes, and like so normal and average that I don't even remember what the pants looked like. I know for sure they had pants because I feel like I would have remembered seeing skin. Like I didn't see any skin. I didn't even notice hands. But then again, I guess I wasn't looking for detail like that. Um, I was just really concerned with what the hell they were looking at for some reason.
And the way you're describing them being like unnaturally still, I know that you've said it a few times and that's maybe the best that you can describe, but just try to break that down a little bit. Like what are you describing?
Um, so even the way that they changed seemed unnaturally still. Like if you picture in your mind a garbage bag morphing into a person, and how would that look? You would think there would be some like crinkling of plastic, and then it would turn into like crumpling of clothing, and like there was no crumpling, no crinkling. It was too smooth. It was too smooth is the only way I can describe it. And then once they were their human form or humanoid form, they were too still. Like it just went too smooth to too still.
I mean, you sound like me at that juncture in my story where I talk about how it was too smooth and it stopped too fast and it just hung so completely still, like it defied the laws of physics of motion in my visual perspective of it.
Yes, actually, I had that thought at that point in your story too. When you said too smooth, I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, my fairies were too smooth too.
It's very, very, very hard to describe that part of seeing them. It's hard.
It is because although they did appear natural, they were unnatural at the same time.
your neighbor's house, like they're looking at the direction of your house. Are they looking to the right of your house or to the left of your house as you're perceiving them in their human form?
So if I'm looking at them and they're across the street, they would have been looking down my left side, their right side.
Yeah, okay, I got you. So they're looking to the right-hand neighbor from their perspective. That's probably why you had a hard time seeing their face.
Well, no, I don't know why I had a hard time seeing their face because they weren't looking, they weren't on it, they weren't facing away from me. They were facing toward me. It's just that, like, so they were facing directly toward my house. But they're a little bit diagonal from where my position is. Like from the window I was looking at them from, if I walked straight across the road, I would have ended up on their left-hand side.
You know, I can feel my brain doing mental gymnastics to set the scene because it's such an interesting and detail-rich story. Do you remember like any colors of clothing? Not that you have to or anything. I'm just curious. Like all details kind of fascinate me.
The only thing I remember about colors is the white hoodie and the black hoodie, and that the white hoodie was the white garbage bag and the black hoodie was the black garbage bag. And I did get the sense that like their stare was really intent. Like they were intensely staring. And I don't know how or why I got that sense, but that was a really strong, like overwhelming, even though I couldn't see their face or their eyes, it was very strong, like palpable sense that their stare was too intense almost. And I think that's why I was so focused on what they were looking at, because it was like I was thinking they're too intently focused on something. What could it be? Do they have friends that are up to no good in my yard? That's what I was thinking.
You know, none of what you've described sounds like a dream or a delusion. It sounds a lot like many of the component aspects of fairy encounters I've heard from others, told in not like in a totally unique way, which is so valuable. But then the like the touch points, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, like the tactics, touch points, the movement, the glamoring, these are all things that actually seem universal to Fae, even if Fae themselves are highly distinct and individual, is what I'm trying to indicate.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, if you saw that, you would be absolutely fucking confused. Your brain would go into kind of like an overload mode, and you would probably have a very long, hard time, if it wasn't for the existence of the internet, understanding what that was in the context of fairies. So it's so fascinating in and of itself that you've kind of come to this conclusion and now are talking to me, because what you sound like to me is exactly like what the kind of person I'm hoping to talk to should sound like. Someone who's really seeing this super weird stuff happen and is like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
What did you think when you actually saw garbage bags turn into people?
I don't know. Like, that was like the baffling thing, is that I wasn't stuck on that point. I should have been. I should have been thinking, why are garbage bags turning into people? I watched it happen. I knew it was weird, but it wasn't the forefront. Like, I was just worried about what they were looking at. It doesn't make any sense. So like, what was I thinking when I watched them turn into people? Nothing. I just watched them turn into people.
Okay, two things. When you're telling me kind of the second, third time about this part, I'm like thinking about it more from the perspective of glamoring, I guess, is where my intuition and mind is working. And it's like, so of course, you know, they're maybe showing themselves as people, almost as like, okay, she's still looking at us as garbage bags. Maybe we can try this. And then in a way, it sort of sounds like they're trying to take a more acceptable form or something, or even like the way you're describing, like feeling that they're looking at something intently and needing to go check out what they're looking at, is almost feels to me like a type of telepathic misdirection in a way, like to get you off them and to go.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Because yeah, the feeling to go find out what they were looking at was so overwhelming. There's no way I could have not, like, I ran to the bathroom to go look out that window. I was so concerned with that.
And then now they can leave, and then you're still, for whatever reason in that moment, you're still past the veil, and so you caught the party that they were on their way to.
Yeah.
For sure you did. Whoa, I'm getting those goosebumps again.
The one song party, which maybe lasted a long time in their dimension.
I think that that's also really correct, because my fucking hairs all over my body are standing up now. Interesting. And to what extent that was perceivable to anybody but you would be a question that, like, will remain unresolved until you go knock on the door of your neighbor and say, hey, several years ago, did you have a one-song party?
I know. Maybe I'll do that someday.
I don't think you need to, because the answer is already contained within this conversation, to my satisfaction anyway.
Yeah.
You holding the thought about this affair in your mind and then seeing that light is the exact kind of... See, there's a weird, like, so I'm going to try to articulate a complicated thought, but I have so many more questions for you. But you've afforded me a great chance to maybe say something that I'm trying to say all along in this series that I never feel like I do a good job doing. But it's like the individual, like you are the perceiver. So maybe that you're special, maybe you're random, whatever, but you're human. And the fact that we can experience this stuff at all says a lot about us. It is not an artifice that we can see and experience these things. It's a innate part of our biology that we can do it. We're not that different than the Fae. Our soul, the intangible part inside of us, is what they are made up of in entirety, is kind of the way I look at it. We're just a human with Fae stuck in the middle of all that meat, and they're just meat-free Fae with no body to tangle with,
Right.
which is why they can turn into stuff. But then later, as you go to contemplate and see the lights flickering, I don't necessarily take that one to be directly the Fae giving you a ding, 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 yes, 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 you got it right. I take that one much more to be like a little hint to yourself of your true power and intuition reflecting back to you from a piece of reality that you are interacting with.
Yeah.
Unlocking that initial experience and then having that contemplation and that signal back, it to me, it kind of completes the thought of like why the Fae are interested in us at all, why we can see them, and what happens to us after we see them is we become much more able to understand what it's all about without being able to articulate it. But it happens when you see a light flicker in response to like your internal held thought.
Right.
Because the interface is real. It's somehow real. I don't know. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I'm sorry if I butchered that, but I'm trying to...
I think so, but it did remind me that that's not the first like interaction with light bulbs I've had. Is it okay if I go off the story?
Absolutely. Let's go where your intuition is taking you, because maybe that's why I was blabbing about it.
Okay. So yeah, light bulbs. There was a light bulb incident when I want to say I was probably like 17, and I was living with my like high school sweetheart. We were living in this awful bachelor apartment. We had rats and like the plumbing made noises and it was terrible, but we were out on our own and we were living there. And he wasn't the nicest guy. So on this particular night, he was being pretty like verbally abusive to me, and I was getting super angry. Like he was berating me and like mostly my physical, like the way I looked. He was just saying terrible things. And the more he talked, the more angry I got. And it was one of those times in my life where I don't think I've it's probably in like the top 5 angriest I've ever been. He was just really pushing my buttons. And normally we would have sat down to the table to eat dinner. But that night I was so angry. I made dinner and I had it on the table and I thought, I don't even want to sit down and eat with you. So instead of eating at the table, we took our dinner and went and sat in separate areas. But or we were going to go sit in separate places. And as soon as I took that food off the table and walked like 2 feet away from the table, the glass casing from the overhead light that was directly over the table fell onto the table and shattered in these like huge shards that just whizzed in all directions on this like smooth surface where I truly feel like if we had been sitting at that table, we would have been severely injured by these huge shards of glass just like projecting out at like crazy speeds. It was pretty intense. And then but it doesn't stop there. So later that evening, the fighting continues and we're still fighting and we're outside having a smoke under the porch light and we're arguing. And as we're arguing, the actual light bulb, it was a bare light bulb, exploded over our heads. And there's one more piece. So that happened, I think we were 17. Years later, it would have been exactly 10 years later because my oldest was just a newborn and I was visiting a friend. And I don't know why this came up, but I was telling him the exact story that I just told you. And as I was telling it, we heard a light shatter and his light bulb in his living room, not the bulb, the glass casing of the overhead light had just shattered as I was telling him this story. So I have light bulb stuff. And it was again one of those scenarios that was too weird to even bother getting weirded out about. Like we both just chuckled. We were like, "What? Okay." And just kind of moved on because what do you do?
I've managed to collect my thoughts a bit more. You're a fantastic guest. I'm so glad I brought you on the show. I'm glad you decided to reach out to me. I mean, honestly, this is like one of my favorite episodes I've created in a while. Yay. I love your storytelling and I love your intuition around all of this stuff. You said, that you kind of like are, I can't remember your exact words, but to paraphrase, you feel resonant with some of the guests. You feel like a lot of the guests.
Totally.
You feel to me like a lot of the guests. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've got some fairy DNA and you're part of the way in the fairy realm all the time. And when those girls were coming for a fairy party at your house, you're just naturally kind of already there. And the shock was both ways. They were shocked you could see them. You were shocked that you could see them.
Yeah.
Sorry, they were shocked that you could see them and you were shocked that you could see them. So that's exactly how that plays out. It's just totally logical, taken from the lens that a couple of fairy girls were like, what the fuck? She can see us? What do we do? And then like, it's so interesting because yes, they are legendary for their parties. It's come up so many times. And like perceiving music with no origin point or with a strange origin point is also a very common trope in the fairy subject matter. And in fact, like, I don't know if it's because I don't like the folklore or tropes because I feel like somehow that makes it inaccessible to scientific minded pursuit.
Right.
But that's just me being, like racist towards fairies or something, you know what I mean? Like I can't stop them from being how they are, so I can't diminish what seems to be true in presentation. And what you've described just is a complete story to me that sounds like it stars two fairies that you saw, and you, the third fairy in the mix.
Well, it's funny you say about potentially me being fairy, which I'm like, that's I don't know. That's so cool. It's such a compliment. But another thing that had happened to me that I don't think about because it was such a it's such a short blip of a thing, but it's come up since I started listening to your podcast. I'm going to go into another story if that's all right.
I would love it.
Okay. So this was, I own a business, and I have we opened in 21. A lot of things happened in 21. My business partner and I decided to be absolutely insane and open. So we have like a massage therapy clinic, we have acupuncture, and then we have a busy yoga studio, and we have aesthetics, and we have a lot going on there. And it's super successful, thank God, because we were just crazy to open during that time. But we did it. And so during around that period, right before we were just starting to get serious and we were actually looking at buildings to buy and like putting money away and writing a business plan, and it was getting serious. And I had gone for a sound bath, which I just thought was going to be a sound bath. I had no idea that this couple were actually psychic mediums. Like, I didn't know that at all. And they just kind of threw that in there to the session, which was really cool, but that's not even part of the story. But when I approached their house and she opened the door, she said, "Oh my gosh, look who you brought." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She said, "You are surrounded by so many fairies. They just love you." And she was overjoyed and like giggling. And I could see her watching whatever it is that she was seeing, watching them. Like her eyes were darting around. Like I felt like she could really see them. And I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. That's the first time I'd ever heard that said about me. But then, as part of that session, she did go on to say that the business would be successful, which it has been, thankfully. But there were some really scary times in the beginning. And this is segueing into another story, but I remember I was doing laundry and I was asking about, just kind of asking for a sign because I was getting nervous about the whole business venture. And I asked for a sign out loud, and a dime fell on top of the dryer. And I thought, okay, it could have just flung out from like some clothes. So I said out loud, "Well, I'm going to need a little more proof than that." And just as I said that, a dime fell on top of my head.
No fucking way.
No, it gets better. So later on, I'm in a treatment. And at this point, I still was treating out of my house. And I was giving someone a massage. And I was thinking about this crazy thing that had happened. And so I like initiated communication sort of in my mind. And I just said, okay, that was too fucking weird. Whoever it is I'm talking to, like, can you just tell me like what does 2 dimes even mean? Like, does that mean the business is going to do well? Like, what does it actually mean, 2 dimes? And at that moment, I looked at the clock and it said 10:10. I just thought that whoever I'm talking to has a sense of humor. It was like, yeah, of course it means 10:10. I know it means 10:10.
I'm so glad that you told me what the psychic told you. I don't have to do the heavy lifting here. Of course.
The story gets weirder, not to interrupt you.
No, please, you can say anything. You've got the steering wheel. Keep going.
Okay.
This is fantastic.
It's almost done, but like the third part of the coin story is, again, just like when I tell the garbage bag girls story, I feel weird because it doesn't sound true, but whatever. If even if people don't believe me, if some of this stuff can provide entertainment, at least that's great. It has a purpose. But anyway, I was thinking about the dimes and what had gone down. This is probably weeks later, maybe even months later. And since that happened, I'd been finding dimes every time I asked for a sign. There's a dime. Every time there's a dime. And like, I'm not that type of person. Like, I know I'm really into this stuff and I love weird things and I'm really into strange stuff, but this is going to sound maybe a little borderline rude, but I have in the past had some judgments about like crystal shop people, which I totally take back. I think I'm probably one of them now. But so just all that to say, I'm not looking for this stuff. The stuff is just happening to me. I'm not asking or like looking for it. Anyway, I'm thinking about the dimes, and I'm just picking up stuff in my bedroom, cleaning up and tidying up. And I thought I had like an actual thought like, well, fuck, if that happened, when I asked for proof that it was actually happening, what if I just ask again? So I asked out loud, like, okay, well, if that was indeed, proof or confirmation that I asked for a sign and you gave me one, well, just give me one again. And I bent over to pick something up, and a nickel fell out from behind my ear. A nickel came out from behind my ear. I felt it materialize behind my ear and fall on the floor. And I wouldn't believe me. I would not believe me. Like, I am a pragmatic, very skeptical person. This story sounds ridiculous. I know it does, but that's what happened.
I'm smiling ear to ear. I 1000% believe you. Did you know that I just last week published the episode with Harper, who talks about 3 pennies on 3 separate occasions being materialized and slipped into her open-toed shoes when she was walking in different places?
No, I think I saw that. I saw something about coins, but I didn't listen to it yet.
Well, it's remarkably similar to your story. Go back to the laundry room for a second. One fell onto the top of the machine, and you're like, I'm going to need a little bit more proof than that. And then one fell onto the top of your head.
Yep.
Do you know that I just spoke to a woman who had her vaporizer disappear and then materialize by being thrown at her head?
Yes, I did hear that one.
So the consistency is utterly fucking remarkable across your individual story that you think is happening in isolation and the stories of many of the guests that have come on the show. I love my fucking job. But you know what? Honestly, you can come and be the new host of Fascinating Fae. You're fucking way cooler than me. Like, you're too fucking cool for school. Listen to you just casually, like, in a kind of, I'm going to Starbucks, I'll see you in 15 minutes kind of tone, telling the world all this amazing stuff. What did it feel like to have a coin drop on your head? What happened in your mind in that moment? Take me back there.
Honestly, when it happened, and I think even to this day, I love the humor of it. And I love the fact that that a coin came out from behind my ear. Like, isn't that a direct reference to like magicians materializing coins from behind their ears?
It's a dad joke of magician stuff. Yes.
I was like, who are you? You're funny. I liked their sense of humor, whoever it was. It was like, thank you. I needed that comic relief more than I needed a sign.
Well, you, me, and everyone listening knows what kind of interdimensional entity has a sense of humor like that.
We do?
Yeah, fairies. Ah! The Fae. They do. I mean, Harper was having like problems in her house, and she went and did an offering. The next morning, she went out to walk her dog, and she was walking back up the stairs in kind of like open-toed slip-ons. And as she walked up the stairs, something slipped a penny into her shoe. But not just any penny. A shiny penny from 2007, almost 20 years old. Like, it looked like it had never been anywhere.
Wow.
The next day, she's out again for a walk, different location, off kind of on the grass next to the sidewalk, thinking heavily about this shoe penny from the day before. And as she's walking, another one slips into her left shoe. And right, like, under her toe, again, a shiny 2007 penny in immaculate condition. The next day, she's wearing a pair of sneakers with, like, closed toes, and she's going out to walk the dog, and as she's standing there and the dog is doing its business, she sees a weird sort of flash of light and looks down and finds another 2007 shiny penny, this time on the grass directly in front of her left toe.
See, it's the same being. that feels like my story, just told a different way.
That's why I'm saying you, me, and everyone listening knows what kind of interdimensional entity has a sense of humor like that. But it's more than just a sense of humor, because it's a reality breaking acknowledgement of something much, much deeper. I mean, you're being given a gift of existential enlightenment. Reality is not real. Stuff can materialize. Your thoughts interface with reality. Someone's listening.
Yeah,
These are huge revelations, don't you think?
I do. I totally do. And yeah, I feel like I finally have an answer to, like I said, I didn't talk about these things for a really long time because I was just so bummed that there was no answer. And as much as like, I don't know, like I want the answer. And fairies seem like a really strong fit. Um, I do like the idea of like keeping it unboxed kind of to keep like the wonderment of it all open. But I love that that fairies fit most of my experiences.
I mean, with respect to what you just said, which is brilliantly articulated, I'll just offer this. Adding the word fairies to it is keeping it unboxed.
Oh yeah, you're right. It totally is.
I have no fucking idea what these things are.
Mhm.
It's just, they're not what they're not. They are what they are. And they are this. This is what I'm trying to talk about on this show, is these things. The ones that are giving you money and Harper money and another woman, again, series of high strangeness events culminates like this. This is another show I can point you towards. Why can't I remember her name? I feel so bad when I can't remember a guest, but I remember the story anyway. She came home one day, and in her kitchen, which is normally kind of busy, the counter was like strangely, completely neatly organized. And in the very center of it, what was there? A bright, shiny penny from India that no one could account for.
Yeah, I heard that one today.
Okay, I think that's the same kind of MO. Harper's got another great story too, similar to what you just described. Her husband was walking downstairs to go do laundry, and as he was walking down, he kind of heard like a ping, and he watched a brass ring fall from the sky and land on the carpet. And he picked it up and he brought it up to her, and he's like, this just materialized. What the fuck do I do with this thing? It just showed up. And they put it on this shelf in like their home, like kind of a special area where they're kind of starting to put weird stuff that they think is from the Fae, because it wasn't the first thing they got given. And then later she was making baking to give away, and they gave away one of the Christmas cakes and to the husband's boss. And like a couple days later, the husband's boss sent a text, and he's like, hey, did you lose a ring? The ring was inside the cake.
Oh my God.
And they went to check on the counter where they had left the ring, and sure enough, it wasn't there. So it had like never existed, materialized. They put it somewhere special. It dematerialized, went into a cake, and got given as like a prank to another person. They're funny. They're hilarious.
I did have my wedding ring go missing once for like a really long time. It was months. It was maybe like 4 months, maybe even more. And I didn't say anything. I was just kind of hoping it would turn up. But it did turn up in a really weird spot. It was like on the top of a really high shelf in my kitchen that, like, this is embarrassing to say, but I've never dusted up there. I don't even know what I was doing up there because I didn't go up there. It was like so high. I didn't have knickknacks up there. Just one day I must have decided to dust, but it was probably the first time ever. And there was my ring.
Weird. Have you listened to the story with Jem about her missing and returning wedding ring?
No.
Can I tell it to you now? This is your episode, but I tell these stories to people like you who come on the show who haven't heard them because I feel like you need to hear it. So how did the ring go missing, first of all? Let's get into that for a second before I tell you Jem's story.
I honestly don't know like how or when because, like I said, I'm a massage therapist, so I would take it off often, every day. But I always put it in the same spot, in my treatment room, in the same spot. But I would also often forget it for a day or two, so I can't even peg Like by the time I realized it was missing, it could have been a couple of days.
Okay, well, fair enough, but it sounds to me like you hadn't ever lost it before, although you
No.
maybe had left it in the same spot. And Jem's husband's wedding ring went missing from, again, the same spot that he always put it, which was at the bedside table every night before he went to bed after the shower.
Mm-hmm.
So one day they wake up, the wedding ring is gone, and they can't find it. And they really look because, this is... Note to all men listening, if you have a wedding ring and you lose it, that's bad. So don't do that. Your partner's not going to like that. Okay. Anyhow, so to avoid, being in the kind of trouble that a man can find himself upon losing a wedding ring, he extensively searched, as you can well imagine, and very much begged for forgiveness and, knew he hadn't lost it, knew what he had done, but, to avoid, he took one on the knee, as they say, and, admitted, okay, maybe I lost it. And it was just lost, but it was a huge frustration. They had actually cut open the bottom of the couch lining to try to find it if it slipped out of the couch or something, they went to extensive measures, including looking places it would not logically be. Mm-hmm. Now, the story kind of has a long middle part, but I'll do my best to shorten it up because it's relevant to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
One day, Jem, 3.5 years later, starts to have weird stuff show up in her garden and she can't figure it out. And she cleans it up, and the next day again, cleans it up, next day again. She's like, what the fuck is this? No one is admitting to doing it. So she buys a camera. She starts to watch the camera. One day, there's a bunch of stuff again, but nothing on the camera. What the fuck? So now she's obsessed. Now she's watching out the window, watching the camera late at night. One day she sees this little kind of light appear, but nothing else on the camera, but not with her eyes. But she goes out the next morning and there's a bunch of stuff again. The stuff I'm referring to, pumpkin seeds everywhere. Mm-hmm. And now she's totally fucking confused. So she keeps watching the camera, and eventually she sees it. And I've seen this video. It's incredible. This little tiny 2-dimensional, super smooth, strange fluidity of motion man with a hat and a beard, kind of looking like a cartoon, kind of looking real, but looking like nothing you could really have imagined. It's too strange. It's just flat.
Oh, that's cool.
And it goes from one side of the garden on its legs, 2 little fucking almost cartoon movement feet across over to the tree stump. And she sees this and she can't believe it, but she knows that she's dealing with something strange, which is why she's been staying up all night and bought this camera and everything. And so her mind is reeling. And then she's in this weird moment of intuition, she's in her head, the idea pops in her head. Can I have my wedding ring back? And she's telling her husband, look at what I saw in the video the next morning. And as she's doing this, she has this thought, can I have my wedding ring back? Which seems weird to her. But they open the door to go out for a walk, to walk the dog. And right there on the center floorboard of the patio is the wedding ring, just sitting there.
Oh my gosh.
And so the inexplicable disappearance and the return to a strange location in Jem's case is punctuated by a through line of this storytelling that involves what she was experiencing in the garden, what she filmed, and then what she thought, and then the ring coming back. It's a highly educational episode when you listen to Jem.
Is that footage there? Can we watch it?
Yes, if you go to Nature Spirits in My Garden, that is up there. And there's a really fucking good still of it on the wall. And there's all sorts, she's the real deal. Because when that episode aired, afterwards, the gnome in question hopped out of her fucking home in reality right into the podcast and then went on to wreak havoc for fucking 20 episodes. And is still to this day a kind of nuisance around the show, in a pleasant way. I love you, Gribble Grumble, but fuck, man. That the offline I was telling you about the guy who said, Grimble Grumble, where are you at? And the air hose popped off.
Yep.
That's the gnome from the story I'm telling you.
Okay.
And it was after I talked to her and I saw it and I thought a lot about her story and I hung up with her. And this is what happened. So we talked for 3 hours. She tells me all this. I see the video. I'm like, this is so convincing. Just like you. She's just like you. She's so convincing because it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't poke holes in it. You can't emotionally detect the like I can't emotionally detect anything wrong with what you're saying. It just sits right with me. So that was the same feeling I had with Gem, and I'm thinking about it, and I go into my kitchen and I'm like, this is all true story, and I published an episode with all this in it. I'm just telling you stuff you can listen to anyway. But
Yeah.
I go into my kitchen after talking with Gem, and I'm like, for some reason I'm hearing in my head Pink Floyd song.
Oh, I have a Pink Floyd story.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, I'll wrap up here. So I'm like, play Time by Pink Floyd to my phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And nothing happens. And I'm like, hey Siri, play Time by Pink Floyd, and nothing happens. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm offline, or maybe the phone is dead. I have my phone kind of in the bathroom away from where I was recording, and I was just talking to it with my voice. I wasn't looking at it. And I'm standing in the kitchen, and I like 8-9 minutes go by, and then my phone starts playing music. It is playing Pink Floyd, but it's playing the song Echoes, which is like, starts with like ping, ping, and it does like one ping, and then I'm like, huh? And then I'm waiting, and then it does another ping, and it's not like playing the song in real time. It's separating the 3 initial pings in the song and playing them independently whenever it fucking feels like, right when I'm just about done thinking, huh? So 3 pings happen, and then the song changes, and it starts to play this song from Pink Floyd I've personally never heard before, even though I was a pretty decent Pink Floyd fan, I would say. Mm-hmm. A song called The Gnome starts playing on my phone in the bathroom.
What?
A gnome named Grimble Grumble.
Oh, so that's how you named your gnome?
No, he introduced himself to me because he took control of my phone and played that song. And then the next day when that happened, I got like overwhelming fucking weird fucking vibes, goosebump head to toe. And it played, and it was like a gnome named Grimble Grumble, and then stopped. And I was like, and I was in the kitchen, and it's on my phone, and I could kind of hear in the back of my head, like, did I just hear gnome on the music in the bathroom? And I went and I looked, and the phone was open to The Gnome by Pink Floyd. What's this song? The Gnome? It's like on their first album ever, like one song at the end. And it tells the story of a gnome named Grimble Grumble. And the weird part, which, I'll finish up here as quick as I can, because you've got me thinking about all this now. The weird part here is like the song tells a story about a gnome who's like waiting and biding his time until one day there's a brand new way to say hooray. And I took that to mean like basically waiting until there's a chance to do what's gone on with his presence in Fascinating Fae, to put not too fine a point on it. And then the next day I felt so compelled by what had happened to my phone after talking with Jem, the inexplicable fucking lightning precision of synchronicity of my phone malfunctioning and playing not the Pink Floyd song I thought I was looking for, but this entire other sequence of Pink Floyd songs unfolding in the way I just described, to me was like, okay, well, that's that gnome's name, or at the very least confirmation that the gnome himself is real.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah. I think you're bang on that he was making a reference in that song to resurfacing in your podcast.
Most likely, which begs the question, what is your Pink Floyd story?
Well, up until now, I always assumed it was a ghost story. But the more we talk about fairies and music, the more I'm like, and this is just a short story, there's not much to it, but essentially I was just at my friend's house late at night. We were both in college, and I had a job that took me out at night, and she was a night owl. So I would often just end up at her house in the middle of the night, like wee hours in the morning, having tea, sitting around the table, chit-chatting, and that's what we were doing. We were just chit-chatting, and I casually said out of the blue, "I really like that song Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd." And I no sooner got the words out than it came on super loud from the beginning of the song. They had a decent sound system upstairs on the second level, which was powered off, so she says. But either way, even if it was already powered on, what the fuck? Like, we had to go up the stairs and turn it off, and we were terrified.
What if the threads of connection between myself and the guests defy the scope of time and space in the most unbelievably and fun ways?
Mm.
We'll never know, but there's so many interesting dips into the water here that we've both been doing back and forth with one another, that it really makes me feel like this is a really fun and special episode of Fascinating Fae. I'm having such a good time. I'm so appreciative that you came on the show, Megan.
I'm so glad I did too. I really was hesitant because I guess I wasn't sure. Yeah, like you said, that my stories would stack up because I wasn't sure there were fairy stories. But the more we talk about it, the more I'm pretty sure. And also, I have an owl story, which is also kind of short, but it reminds me an awful lot of yours.
Like here's me doing my impression of you. I just have this short story. It's entirely mind blowing and involves all these reality breaking aspects. But it's just a short story. You're so understated. I love it. I fucking love it. Please tell me your owl story.
Well, when these things happen, you're not okay. I have had situations that have happened that I've asked for. Like when we were kids, we grew up in the middle of nowhere. I grew up more rural than I even live now. And we were bored. So we often would do seances and make Ouija boards out of found objects. And it worked. It worked every time. So that's a situation that you're asking for something and it happens. Great. But the situations that we're talking about, I think the reason I sound so understated about it is because it just happens to you out of the blue. And you're not asking for it really, except for in the case of me asking for a sign and a dime fell on my head. But generally speaking, I'm not asking for these things to happen, and they totally blindside me. And so you're not in a spooky frame of mind. You're just living your life, and it happens, and then it's over, and you're like, okay, well, that just happened. But anyway, my owl story is, it's a real owl. And I think, so I only heard your story once, and I think there's similarities, because there was an owl in your fairy story, right?
Absolutely, there was.
Mm-hmm. So this takes place when I'm probably 14, 15, and I had decided this one winter that I was going to go snare rabbits with my dad, because me and my dad never had much of a relationship, and I just really wanted to find some common ground with him. Hunting animals was not my jam. I remember when I was little and he would try to, do something with me. But all he wanted to do was hunt. So he would take me out, and he'd be like, "All right, you're going to learn how to use a rifle today. And there's a porcupine. Let's practice your aim on the porcupine." And I could never bring myself to do it. So I always felt like a disappointment to him in that way. And we never really had anything else to do or talk about. So I finally mustered up the courage. I was like, yeah, okay, this winter I'm going to snare rabbits with dad. And we're going to have a great time. We're going to find common ground, and we'll be together. It'll be something to bond over. So I had to really steel myself to do this because I love animals, and bunnies are super cute. I would never want to hurt a bunny. But I did. I went out, I learned how to set snares, make snares, find the rabbit trails, and we were doing it. We were checking them every day, and I was selling pairs of rabbits for $8 a pair. But this one day morning, we went out to check the snares, and there was a big owl that was caught in one of the snares. He wasn't hurt, but it was tight around his leg. And he seemed okay. So my dad just kind of loosened it. And instead of flying away, the owl flew and landed on a tree, like an evergreen right next to us at about eye level, like just slightly higher than eye level. And he was only about, like, he didn't go far. If I'd taken 2 steps forward, I could have touched him. He not only landed there, he landed there and stared at us and hooed at us and didn't move. And we both stood there looking at each other, looking at the owl, and kind of chuckling for it was probably maybe 5 minutes. And then we decided to move on. But I truly felt like we could have just stayed there forever because we moved on thinking, well, the owl's not going to end it. So I guess we'll move on. And I remember my dad chuckling and saying, I think he's saying thank you because he was quite vocal. And we moved on. And as we walked away, he just stayed there. I don't know how long he stayed there, but he did continue hooing at us. And then we continued on our way. And later that day, I did feel like not feel. I definitely saw some kind of like bunny shaped apparition kind of bounding through the forest. And there wasn't much more to it to that day than that, but the owl combined with like seeing this bunny apparition sort of sealed the deal for me. To me, I took it to mean like, yeah, I don't need to be out here killing bunnies to have a relationship with my dad. I think I'll try to do that some other way because it really wasn't sitting right with me. And that was the last day I went snaring rabbits.
Wow. Honestly, the more I get a chance to spend a bit of time with you, the more I'm appreciative that you've come forward. I mean, the things that we all do in order to encourage meaningful relationships in our lives. I mean, as you tell me that story, I can't relate to it exactly, but I know that I can relate to it conceptually. Like the things that I've tried to do to be close to my father, which is a very difficult relationship in my life. And it's like, I don't know, part of the journey of becoming ourselves is confronting those impossible situations that, even though you're approaching them with love, still feel perhaps wrong. I really feel the deep conflict and pain around the bunny stuff. And I do think that in those moments of holding that within ourselves is a time that we are close to the Fae. One of the things that you might uncover as you continue to listen to the show is like, I'm a longtime vegan. I'm a huge encourager of people to adopt a vegan diet and lifestyle. And just, if for no other reason than the fact that all life is pretty amazing, that it exists at all, and that, you know, it shouldn't be trivialized, you know. And I'll just kind of leave it there because I don't like to ever have an agenda as part of the work that I'm doing on the show. However, I'll say this. Enough people have told me, the fairy realm is a vegan realm.
I believe that. I'm with you like 100%, and I'm like, I lean towards veganism even though I don't pull it off. But yeah, someday when I'm less busy, I'll take it more seriously.
If that instinct around animals is within you, that's a Fae characteristic more than not. And even myself, I mean, I wasn't always vegan, right? Like, you know, not at all. I used to live the typical pretty crappy North American Canadian diet that, you know, is available, right? So
yeah. Just that, like, I grew up on a hobby farm, so we had milking cows, and we ate our own beef and chicken and all that stuff, eggs. But even with that, and like, a lot of people would say that that's, you know, happy meat is healthy meat, but I like, meat never sat right with me even as a child. Like, physically, I think your body tells you constitutionally what you should be eating. And like, I remember like kids say like spinach will roll in their mouth and they can't stand the texture of spinach. For me, it was beef. Like, for me, it was meat. Meat would make me gag. So like, my favorite meal always, since as a child and even to this day, is like a plate of boiled vegetables.
Well, it's interesting. Maybe I will leave more of this in than not, because it's interesting to contemplate in and of itself, because it's come up so many times on the show. Whether that's my prompting or independently, it being brought up, veganism and fairy stuff, there's some crossover there. We can just leave it at that,
Sure.
But I appreciate the ability to open up discussion points that are not necessarily right on story, because I do think that it is so relevant to explore the deeper nature of ourselves and how steps that we can take may lead us closer to alignment with these events, if that's something we want. And if it's also something we don't want, we have that choice too. That's the joy of free will. Okay, so let me ask you a couple more questions, if I can. Now that you've woven this like larger series of events and synchronicities together for me, I feel much more like aware of what was going on in the days leading up to coming to talk to you, because I anticipated a good conversation, even though you were diminishing it, saying, I don't know if I should, come and tell you this. So I like that, though. You're my favorite kind of guest, a reluctant one. It's usually the quiet, reluctant, articulate, soft-spoken ones that have the biggest impact on me anyway.
I'm so glad I could be a good guest. Like, that means a lot to me because, like I said, even I have had trouble speaking about it because I want it to have meaning and I want it to make sense, and it doesn't make sense. And often you can't even make meaning out of it. So I did come to the conclusion that I want to talk about it, if for no other reason than entertainment value. I don't care if people believe me. Like, I have zero attachment to that. But entertainment value alone is pretty cool, and that's good enough. So if I have been entertaining, then I am like super pumped about that. So thank you.
You've been entertaining, engaging, thought-provoking. You've been recalcitrant. You've been charming. You've been real. You've done it all, and you've done it like perfectly because you've just been yourself. And that's where my real deep appreciation stems from. There's no magic trick there. You just came forward, told the truth. And I'll say this too, like I often say this on the show, so sorry to sound like a broken record, everybody. I'm not an expert. I don't really know if what I saw is a fairy. I just feels like that's the closest thing, and I'm getting hints along the way that maybe that is the right name and we're onto something. But this show is maybe one of the few places where a series of events like you've just described actually fits and makes sense. And I know that for me, in the time before this show, there was a exact type of mentality that you're describing about many of the events of my life, which is like, yeah, am I just going to sound really bonkers to people? And it's empowering. I know that's a word thrown around, but for me anyway, it was empowering and continues to be empowering to realize all that weird intuitive shit and weird event stuff that I've always tangled with and felt is related and felt is somehow about it all in my life is able to be kind of like put in one place and looked back at with this lens of reflection, and I go, oh, right. And I see, like, at the very least, little bits of that type of connecting the dots happening with you here tonight. And I hope anyway, it brings you some relief of mind and lets you kind of step out from that, I have to diminish all this, and allows you to step a little bit more into like the wonder of what is really going on with you. It seems to me like if you can ask for signs and get responses, I mean, in my long history hosting this show, I've only heard people with that capability speak about it maybe once or twice. Like, Harper didn't ask for a sign of coins. She just got it in response to her tentative act of an offering, the first one she's ever done in her life to something. So I know that maybe like it doesn't feel as powerful of a story to you, but to me listening, it's really, really powerful what you've described happening. And I know enough. Like, I'm pretty stupid sometimes, but I know enough that when I'm talking to a person like you, who's very, very intelligent and soft-spoken and thoughtful and talking about stuff like this, I'm talking to a fairy. So I have to be careful. And, I don't want my glasses to go flying off the table or something like that.
Well, hey, apparently I can break light bulbs, and I mean, I would never intentionally do anything like that, but apparently it has happened.
Would you tell me a little bit more about art and, how that fits into all this for you?
Oh yeah, like the sculptures.
Yes, because I'm joking about my glasses flying off the table because I'm kind of making a inside joke about Danielle's episode and you and your connection to sculpture and her. But tell me more about it because I need to know more about it, and I think the audience would like to hear about it too. As we kind of wind down, let's go into more about you and your sculpture, please.
So the episode with Danielle and her, I think it's dolls that she makes, but there's a clay component. So she's a sculptress, and that episode just kept popping up as I was trying to jump around. Like I just jumped around your podcast and I would click random episodes, but this one popped up. Like I want to say at least 3 times, but I really think it was more. And every time it did, I just would let it play. And the same strange thing happened when I listened to that episode that happens when I listen to a lot of your episodes, is that I'm waiting on the edge of my seat for the big reveal, for the person to say the strange thing that happened. And they're about to say it, and my mind wanders and I miss it. And I'm like, and then they're winding down their story and they're like, so that's the story. And I'm like, shit, I missed it. So I go back, and then sometimes that happens 2 or 3 times and I have to replay it 2 or 3 times. But this episode, I would like replayed the whole episode 2 or 3 times, and all I heard was the weird things that were happening to you. Like all I knew about this lady is she makes something. I wasn't even hearing her story. I heard your glasses fall and there was something else that fell. And that's what the part that was grabbing me, but I really wanted to hear her story. It's not that I didn't. It's like something was happening. But there was this other force or some reason that this episode kept popping up, and it was like I was meant to hear it for some reason. And during all this, the last couple weeks that this has been happening, I was offered. So I used to do sculpture for most of my life, having grown up in a household where my mother did sculpture, and she, in particular, she did clay sculpture of gnomes. She called them hobgoblins. They didn't look like garden gnomes. They were a creature, a being that came to her in a dream. So they look almost like they look like a mix, or like, yeah, kind of a mix of like a alien, like a typical gray alien mixed with a goblin. Like there's pointy ears, but there's also big black shiny eyes, and they were super happy and they were super adorable. And then she would do other creatures called wood trolls, and she had some called church grims, but those were sort of the three. And they populated our house. She was super busy. Her business was really successful. She never charged enough for her work, so it didn't work out in the end. But she was going strong for probably 10 years. And it was pretty much like my whole teen years. And so, yeah, she didn't have a workshop, and these things just inhabited our house. So they would be drying in different stages, like before the firing, or the glaze would be drying, and they'd be all over every surface of the house: kitchen table, countertops, dining room. We just lived with them. And during that time period of my life, there was a lot of what I would call poltergeist activity, which I always assumed was haunting stuff. But now, like having listened to that episode, I'm forgetting her name. What was her name?
Danielle.
Danielle. Um, and now having talked about fairies and gnomes and fae folk, I'm almost wondering, like, did the fairies feel welcome in our house because of all these creatures inhabiting the house? Because some of the things that would happen are, for example, well, basically anytime I would find myself alone in the house, something would happen. There was one time in the middle of the day, sunny, beautiful summer day, but everyone left the house and I was alone in the kitchen. And I just knew something was going to happen. I wasn't asking for it to happen. I wasn't even expecting it. It was more of a knowing. It was like, okay, well, what's it going to be? And just as I had that thought, all the pots and pans lifted up off their hooks and fell with a huge clatter to the floor in front of my eyes. I just watched it happen. And stuff like that was very common in that house. It was like a daily occurrence. So I always assumed the house was super haunted, but now I wonder if it was more fairy activity. So getting back to me and my sculpting hobby, I always felt really drawn to sculpt fairies and fae-like figures. And I did do a bit of that. And every time I'm into it and I'm sculpting, people want them. Like I can easily sell them, but I'm hesitant to do that. I have dabbled in it, but it does take some of the creative joy out of it for me. So that's just an aside. But anyhow, I've always felt compelled to sculpt fairies more than anything else. And about 7 years ago, I had to get rid of my kiln because I had a storage issue. I had nowhere to keep it suddenly. And sadly, I haven't been working with clay since then. But since I've started listening to your podcast, and I had heard this particular episode over and over again, but I wasn't clicking. I wasn't really listening, or something was happening. Anyway, all in this time period, I was offered a kiln. And by some strange turn of events, my friends are actually going to help me pick up this kiln tomorrow. And finally, just recently, that episode resurfaced, and I finally heard what she was saying. You're so much better at remembering names than I am. Oh my God, it's gone again.
Danielle.
Sorry, Danielle. I finally heard what she was saying, and what she was saying was that these beings, basically that she was channeling them into her creations. And when it landed, I was like, oh my God, this is why this episode keeps reappearing. And it's like, it's almost illustrating to me that I've been blocking out for a long time what I've been meant to hear or to know, is that this strong compulsion to sculpt the fairies is more than just a compulsion. That it's the same thing Danielle is experiencing. And that it's not a coincidence that I'm getting a kiln tomorrow.
Do I understand correctly? You started listening to the show, and then out of nowhere, someone's offered you a kiln?
Not totally out of nowhere. I did put my feelers out, like to my Facebook friends, and I just said, like, does anyone know someone parting with a kiln? But mind you, months and months went by, like probably 6 months went by. And she only reached out recently after I started listening, and that episode was popping up. And she was like, hey, I think someone told me you might be looking for a kiln.
Nothing happens without us doing a little bit of the heavy lifting first on the side of intention. That's part of the fulcrum. But like any fulcrum, a little bit of intention can lift an amazing load, So it's so interesting. Okay, sorry. Again, you have this incredible ability to breeze past amazing shit. So your mom definitely was channeling Fae just like Danielle does. And just like Danielle... Go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm just having the same aha moment that you are.
No, of course, because if Danielle's dolls can move shit, then your mom's dolls can move shit too.
Yes.
So you're holding in your mind, like, there's this weird energy, what's going to happen? And all of the pots and pans lift off their hooks and fall?
And it didn't surprise me that it was that grand of a gesture. Like, somehow I had this knowing that something like that was going to happen in that moment.
The only conceivable reality in which a person is not fazed by this type of thing is one in which the person experiencing it is already a fairy and is like, oh yeah, that's that. Yeah, we do that. Or like you're working in concert with your thinking and reality. Something I've seen showcased on the show so many times, but you are talking about it on a grand scale in such an understated way. This has turned out to be an incredibly fascinating episode that I would not have been able to anticipate.
Awesome.
I'm lit up. I fucking love this show, actually. I love this show. I love what a person like you coming forward and saying all of those individuated experiences represents, which is like some fucking how, the farther we get into the catalog, the more the people coming forward encapsulate the whole thing. Like a lot of what you're talking about has made up like one whole episode, like one part, you know, like a coin appearing, for example. That's an entire episode.
Mm-hmm.
You had them appear on command and like in such similar ways to others. It's like the parallels are mind-boggling. I would have to get out a spreadsheet in order to plot the degree of parallel touch points in what you've told me to the shit everyone's told me over the past 3 years. It's truly fucking remarkable. I'm not a type of person who blows smoke up people's ass. I'm genuinely shocked. The last 6 or 7 episodes of this fucking show are like next level, and this goes right in there with it. Too fucking cool. Like, too cool. I'm super, super, super fucking happy I got to do this with you tonight.
Me too. And I actually like almost said I was going to use those exact same words that you just said, lit up. Like that's how I feel. I feel really lit up about it. And I had those words in my mind, almost said them, but you said them.
Okay. Well, everything is unfolding as it should. The work continues. Congratulations, both you and I and everyone listening. It's a huge fucking win for the team. All right. Can I've noticed the 2-hour mark's crested. My rule is try to keep it around 2 hours. That's the only reason, I'm going to ask you if I can wind down. Mm-hmm. I could talk to you all night. I'm sure you have like 10 other fucking amazing stories you just haven't fit in.
I do. It's fine. But the ones that we did cover, there is a thread, and I think they were the ones we were supposed to cover.
I love that this episode even seems to contain a narrative arc that concludes in a climax, which is that you're going to walk away from this and channel more Fae into existence. They do their work for outcomes.
Totally. Like literally, physically, I'm going to go make them.
Yep, and then they are all going to move objects respectively when and if they choose and blow other people's minds, and the veil will continue to fall person by person like dominoes until it's gone and we all live together again.
Yes. Or
we're just all really good at deluding ourselves, and this is very entertaining. Like you said.
It's possible.
It's not only possible, it's probable,
Yeah.
In the absence of good scientific backing for any of the shit we're talking about, that's probably what I would encourage a rational person to try to fucking do. But
oh yeah,
rationality and irrationality, they are a fine demarcator apart. And if you are of a strong constitution like you are, and you are extremely fucking well adjusted to this reality, extremely well adjusted, I don't have to like worry about you at all. I'm fine with how you are mentally, holding this within yourself and walking in that skin. That's a great example for others, especially with the degree and magnitude and frequency and theme of connected events. I just love that you saw a couple of like fairy teenage girls on their way to a party. You know what's really fucking interesting that just comes to mind as I say teenage out loud is Ezra was kind of like a teenager, kind of like making out with his girlfriend on the beach.
Yeah.
And like maybe like a teenager fairy kind of like was trying to peep on him and then turned into a plastic bag.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. The teenager thread there is kind of just an interesting, intangible that has just come to mind. But that's all cues that, my mind is going to not, settle down for several hours. Let's carry our momentum forward into my favorite question that I ask everybody on the show.
Okay.
So this one is coming. Megan.
I do.
What do you think fairies are?
I think that I really want to try not to think too much about what I think fairies are and just let it be an open-ended question.
Yeah, just like empty your mind and let your hands make them.
Yes, exactly.
If you do listen back to Danielle's episode, here's the fucking thing about Danielle and all of this, and it's so interesting that she comes back up again because I know Danielle's listening. Hi, Danielle. And as you know, Danielle, I love you and I'm scared of you. It terrifies me, this woman, because like you, if you talk about like, oh yeah, I ask for a sign and coins appear. I mean, I don't think that Danielle intentionally meant to scare the bejesus out of me that day. But after my glasses fell, the next thing that does happen, which you hear again on the audio, is even more inexplicable. And I almost never talk about it. I always refer to it as my glasses incident.
Oh, the thing that came off the top of the table.
Yeah, that was the first weird part. It literally came off the center top of the table and down, landed next to my head. That was so weird. And it dropped from what would feel like 6 inches next to my ear. It didn't fall from, like, the table above me is about 36 inches, so it's 3 feet just about above me. Mm-hmm. The glasses are there right now. I'm underneath that little table structure, again, recording flat on my back. It did not fall from up there. It fell from close to my ear. And what's the next thing that happened, though, which is the real thing I don't talk about because it makes me too uncomfortable, is the ball inside my ball mouse popped up and out of my ball and dropped on my left side, almost as if to say, you rationalized away those glasses. We're going to prove to you that wasn't us.
Yeah.
Like an escalation.
100%. I had a nickel fall materialize behind my ear, so I believe you. I'm not shocked.
Well, I'm glad to be in good company and to be able to also speak freely without sounding like I'm crazy. I don't know how everybody out there who doesn't listen to this show or doesn't have a good foundation like you do deals with it. But more people than not who come to my door are not well adjusted to it. And that is part of the show's grittiness, is that this is not exactly Tinkerbell Disney shit. It's a little bit different than that somehow.
Yeah.
So, the idea that your mother is channeling them, that you're channeling them, that you're having all this like quote unquote telekinetic or poltergeist activity is so evocative of many of the themes that have been established in the show. And if I could have ever imagined that back in 2019, when a fucking purple light just came zooming into my goddamn fucking wheelhouse, that this would be what I'm doing all those years later, I could never have imagined where those twists and turns were going to take me. Everything you've talked about tonight, the light bulbs, the smashing glass, the owl, the reluctance to kill, the in tune nature that you're probably operating at all the time, that's bringing forth these desires to channel fairies, is the same tone that you're in when you're hearing those like fairy girls that turned into garbage bags. It just makes a lot more sense in context of the individual always, which is why I spend 2 hours on this show talking to people, because you have to know who you're talking to before any of it really makes sense. If you just look at it like a series of isolated random events that happen to Joe Schmo, it feels like improbable. But when you get sensitive and open and you're like, okay, how do the fairies want me to tackle this emotionally? What are they trying to say? What are the themes? Yeah. It's different. It's like then you understand it.
Yeah. no, I felt leading up to talking to you like a little, no, a lot nervous because I felt like I had too much to say. Like I did write things down because I didn't want to like, get stage fright and forget all my stories. But then as I started to write them down, I was like, "Oh my god, it's too many. It's too many, but how do I pick the most relevant ones cuz none of them seem relevant, but then somehow we fit them all in and well, most of them, and there was some sort of like there was a thread woven through them and they were I still have some written down that it's fine. Um that'll be another time, but it was perfect and I appreciate that you gave that amount of time and that space for the stories to surface that were meant to surface.
I'm so reluctant to not hear them all, but I'll try to resist the urge to just make a 4-hour episode here today.
I get it.
Yeah, and that's, I think you understand. I'm just doing like a...
And they're not, you know what? The ones that are left over are not even my stories. They're secondhand, so it's fine.
Oh, cool. Well, you know what? That's good in a way because the story format of the show is firsthand narratives, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Okay, well, Megan, that's a great answer to the fairy question. I don't want to think too much about thinking about it. What a great answer. I mean, I love that answer. I love this interview. I've had such a good time talking with you. I do feel lit up. That's genuine. I feel that real-time endorphin hit of connecting the dots as I'm listening to people. And I especially love it when I feel like someone I'm talking to is maybe getting a little bit clearer themselves through the act of talking with me and sharing. That bravery is always rewarded when someone comes forward. Everyone, like, who hangs up like the next day, they're like, wow, that was like good to do, because my brain is like different now, and I'm like, yeah, me too, thank you. Like, and I know that everyone listening is getting that same effect. So the gift of your courage, your bravery, your articulate, intelligent recalling of all this stuff is a gift you're sharing with everyone tonight. Super, super well received. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much. I am super glad I decided to come on your show, and I hope that more people get excited about talking about it. Like, I regret not talking about this stuff more often and sooner, and instead deciding to just be kind of bummed about it because there's no answers. Like, it's fine that there's no answers, and it's fun to talk about it, and cool things happen when you talk about it.
I mean, please, like, integrate it all and make Fae. And you seem to be surrounded by what I would describe as like very benevolent and well-intentioned stuff. All of your stories seem like uplifting, and that's why I feel so lit up. So I don't know. I think you're definitely in a good position to like carry forward exploring this, no matter where that takes you.
Cool.
Okay, well, what comes next in an episode like this? All my gratitude, is flowing out of me. This is the right time for me to sign off. I give everyone the last word, so please meditate on your last words, and if it's cool with you, I will take us home.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, for everybody listening, tonight you've been listening to Fascinating Fae, and I'm your host, Jim. If you've had a series of events like this and you want to come forward on the show, please do. Like, shoot me an email, drop me a DM. Wherever you find me is cool. The email address is encounters@fascinatingfae.com. The show can be found by looking for Fascinating Fae wherever you find stuff on the internet. With all that said, I have to say this next, which is that on behalf of all of our human and non-human listeners that are tuning in tonight to Fascinating Fae, a super big thanks to Megan from Nova Scotia coming on the show. Megan, wow, thanks for coming on the show. It's great episode.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy that I decided to come on as well. And are these my last words now?
Yeah, you can make them your last words right here, right now.
Okay. Um, there is one thing I wanted to say that I haven't said yet because I don't feel like I'm in any position to give advice on the topic because I'm only now starting to sort of tie everything into the Fae, and that feels really comforting. It feels like a warm blanket to me. Um, but I will say, like, if I could give advice, I would say, like, really try to resist the urge to put these otherworldly beings in a box because they don't want to be put in a box. And I know it's like really enticing to want to give them names and want to like I know like people name the star system that these ones come from and oh that's these ones and oh that's this type of being, but maybe just don't. Maybe just let it all not be in a box.
The sun will rise on your time one day. The silhouette paves the way to good fortune. But you don't know what I mean. And if the beauty in the earth remains, then hope is free and the wind contains the answer. Listen and you will see. And let it shine. We will dine and drink red, red wine till the sun comes up, oh yeah. It lays morning to the world. And let it shine. We will dine and drink red, red wine till morning. And sleep sound under the sun. Rain falls quick and heavy from above, circumstantial unforgiveness with a lack of love for the present. You do not stand alone. It will come as clear as two rocks shaking hands underwater, bringing life to aquatic lands. The answer is just a mind state away. Let it shine. We will dine and drink red, red wine till the sun comes up, oh yeah. It lays morning to the world. And let it shine. We will dine and drink red, red wine till morning. And sleep sound under the sun. Let it shine. We will dine and drink red, red wine till the sun comes up, oh yeah. It lays morning to the world. And let it shine. We will dine and drink red, red wine till morning. And sleep sound under the sun.
And I was just chatting her up and talking, and I was just really excited to just be there with this girl. You know, he's 16. It's awesome, right? It's a beautiful beach, nighttime, it's summer, it's perfect. And I was just getting really excited because, you know, I'm a teenager and, you know, exactly what's on my mind. And just as I was starting to chat to her, I had this sudden realization that there is someone in my peripheral vision. I'm looking at her face. We're leaning against a tree branch. She's leaning against a tree branch. I'm looking at her. And on my right side, in my peripheral vision, I feel like someone's looking at me. Right? I can feel it. I don't even feel it. I know it. Like if a person's standing on your right side in your peripheral vision, you know that there's a person there. You can see him. So naturally, I immediately turned as I'm turning, I can see in the corner of my eye, as I'm turning, I can see something crouched behind that tree stump that I was talking about before, right? It's crouched behind, leaning against the tree stump like a ninja, right? It's like crouching down, and it was kind of peering over at me. It was kind of bending over to the side, peering over at me. And as I was turning, I saw this thing or person precisely go back into hiding. And the way it moved back into hiding was so precise. I'd never seen anybody or anything move into hiding so quickly, so swiftly. It was a ninja level skill, and it was done with precision. It was almost like it was mirroring the same rate at which I was turning towards it. Okay, it was bang. I was like, what the was that? And at the time, I just thought it was Adam being a fool, right? He's my best friend. Of course, he'd do exactly that while I'm just trying to, just get things heated up with my to-be girlfriend. Here's Adam trying to, block me as boys do. He probably thought it was funny, and I got a bit annoyed. I also thought it was funny, but I was also a bit annoyed. And so I was like, oh, Adam. I was like, Adam, get out. I was like, Adam. I was convinced it was Adam. And so when I acknowledged that it was Adam and I was turning and looking towards this, whatever was behind that tree stump and that canopy, Alice started getting a little bit worried. She started getting a bit scared because her night vision's not that great. So because her night vision's not that great, she started getting a little bit freaked out. And she didn't really know what was going on, but she did see some movement there. Okay, she did see some movement, but she couldn't figure out what it was. So at this point, mind you, it's a pretty bright night. Okay, so in New Zealand, we do have these bright nights where the moonlight is so bright, it actually, if there's no shade, it illuminates planet Earth. It illuminates your environment pretty well. So it's one of those nights. Okay, so there was enough light to make out the overall size of what was there. And I thought it was Adam. So I walked closer, very confidently walked right up to the tree stump. And I had this sudden feeling in my body to just stop because I was like, Adam. And when I'm calling out Adam, I'm expecting him to just jump out behind that tree stump and scare me. And I'm expecting it to happen 120%. And it's not happening. He's not jumping behind from the tree stump. And there's a bit of a lag there because your brain expects that 120% and it's not happening. So so now I'm starting to get confused. And mind you, this is happening in a span of like 4 seconds, okay? And as I get to the end of that 4 seconds, my brain is starting to lag because whatever I'm expecting 120% is not happening. And it's now drawing a blank. And so I stop calling out Adam, and I'm just my mind draws a blank, and I stop behind that tree stump. I'm pretty close to it now because I took a few steps forward, and I see this thing not coming towards me, but moving away from me, away from the tree stump. And then I'm seeing it in full form, and I can't believe what I'm looking at. I don't know what I'm looking at, right? I see this thing, and I've just posted the picture in our chat so you can have a look. This thing is completely pearl white in color. It looked like it was made out of pearl, exactly pearl, like exactly what you imagine a pearl to look like. It's that pearly white texture, the pearly white. It looked like it was something made out of pearl. It was too big to be a toddler, but it was too small and too skinny almost to be a fully grown human. It was even too small to be like a 12-year-old, but it was still too big to be a dog or a cat. It didn't quite fit in either category, right? And that's just the size. The other thing where you couldn't place the category of this thing was the length and width of its limbs, okay? Its limbs were so narrow, okay? They were so narrow, and its joints, like its elbow joints, could bend 90 degrees like paper origami. if you made a figurine out of paper origami, that thing's joints could bend 90 degrees. This thing had 90-degree type joints going on, okay? And my mind is just trying to fill in blanks. It's the first and only time in my life where I've ever drawn a blank like that in real time. And all your mind is trying to do is fill in blanks. I'm like, what am I staring at, right? And my mind is just racing and trying to categorize this thing. And I thought of two options. One was a malnutritioned dog. So I'm observing this thing's head, and its head, it's kind of like it's got elf-like ears that are pointed upwards, but they're very small ears, okay? And it's got a very pointy face, and I'm trying to squint to get a visual of its face, and I realize it's got zero facial features. Its face is just a shape. The rest of it, it's got no distinguishable eyes. You could say it's like a 2D drawing of a fox or a Pokemon, right? But it's got no distinguishable features, and there's enough illumination from the moonlight for me to see that it's got no facial features. I'm staring at a blank facial structure with no face. All I can see is the kind of the shiny reflection of that pearly reflection. Okay, now its fingers, there were 3 of them, and they were pointy. Okay, no animal that I know of has exactly 3 distinct pointy kind of fingers, if you want to call them that. I wouldn't call them claws, but I can't call them fingers either. It was really like somebody drew this thing and made it into 3D. Somebody drew some 2D being, and then somebody made that into 3D. That's what I was looking at. And it was moving away from me. And as it was moving away, there was this gripping feeling that something had entered inside my brain, some form of a communication. And the only feeling I had was, don't come any closer. I won't hurt you. You won't hurt me. And we're completely peaceful. You do your thing, I do mine, and I'm going to go now. That's the only idea that it was in my head, right? It was like something went into my brain, and it was very high fidelity communication. I've never experienced that kind of message being given to me. It's as though something was speaking to me, but at the same time, it felt like an internal feeling. I just knew, do not go any closer, but I also knew I'm not going to get hurt. So there was no fear there. There was just pure astonishment. So there's this high fidelity communication that has just been transmitted into my brain within 1.5 seconds. And I had this feeling, so I didn't move any closer. And this thing's moving away. And as it's moving away, that's when this feeling, this complete blankness, just gets even more amplified, because this thing is moving in a way that I have not seen any creature on planet Earth move ever. Now, I grew up around a lot of cats and dogs. I've been to the zoo countless times. By this point, I've watched countless nature documentaries. I love nature, so I'm very fascinated by nature. And so I pay attention to how things move, how people move even. This didn't fall into that category. This thing was moving at you could say it's like a really high frame rate. If you watch films, classic films, or you watch films in 4K or 8K, you see that there's a type of motion, right? If you watch classic films, it doesn't look as sharp and smooth, right? It's got more of that classic look, slower frame rate. But if you look at an 8K TV or a 4K TV, there's new ones with extremely high definition, that's got a certain frame rate, right? It looks very smooth. It looks very sharp and precise. This thing's movement was so precise and sharp that I don't think it's possible for a reptile or a mammal or a bird to move like that. I've never seen anything move with such precision. And it was stepping on dead leaves, but it was not making a sound. Okay, and it was moving away. And as it was moving away, my brain was blown out. I could not figure out what I was looking at. It looked like the size of a toddler, but it had the dexterity and precision of something that was far, far, far more advanced. Okay, but it was the size of a toddler, but it had the limbs of an origami figurine, if you will. So it's moving away, and the only thing I could think of was within. My mind did still try to categorize it. Mind you, 30 seconds have passed. I'm seeing this thing close up. I've had a good, I'd say about 25 seconds, okay, to look at this thing and really get a sense of it. It's moving away, and it's moving away from the tree stump, up the hill. Now, remember when I first started the story, I told you if you're standing at the top of the car park where Adam parked his car and you're looking down the hill, you can see the first tree and the surroundings of that first tree, okay? This is where that being is right now. It's climbing up through the, start of the hill behind the tree stump, behind the tree, and I am astonished. And for a second, I even thought that this thing could be, there was a woman who lived near me in the North Shore. I think she was addicted to meth. She was a very frail, skinny looking woman who looked really malnutritioned, and she used to ride her bike through the beaches late at night, and she looked like a skeleton riding it. I think she was a woman with drug issues, and I think she was a methamphetamine user. Everybody knew her, right? She would just keep riding and riding and riding at night. I thought it could be her, and no, I just couldn't. This thing looked too clean. It looked too precise. It had this polished look about it, and it looked like it had been on planet Earth for millennia. It was. I don't know. Yeah, it looked very highly evolved, but it was the size of a human toddler. So it's moving away, and I at this point, my brain just defaults back to Adam. It's definitely Adam. He's just around with me, right? Because I'm just drawing blanks here. So I at this point, sorry, Alice, she pulls me away, and she's scared. So I was like, oh, all right, she's scared. We have to go. So I reluctantly took her by the hand, walked her out of there. Her night vision's pretty poor, so it's not fair to her for me to stay there. But I reluctantly left while keeping my eye on this thing that's moving away from the tree stump. And as it's moving up, I'm thinking to myself, it's sort of moving away from that first tree up the hill. And I'm thinking, it's moving up the hill. And I'm thinking, if there's someone standing there, if Adam's standing there, he might be able to see it. It looks like a baby crawling. It really looked like a baby crawling, right? And then you move closer and you realize that's not a baby. That's moving with some precision, son. So I grab a hand while keeping my eye on this thing. And we walk using the shoreline, but we didn't walk behind the tree. This thing's walking behind the tree, where I'm walking parallel to it along the shoreline, keeping my eye on it, and I'm keeping my eye focused on it while also leading Alice out of the beach up the hill. I walk a few meters, and I turn away for 2 seconds, and then as I'm starting to walk up the hill now, and we're on the footpath, I turn back to where that thing should have been now, and all I see is a plastic bag, right? Same color, the white, turned from this white creature in seconds, 2 seconds away, I turn back and it's a white plastic bag. And I'm just like, what the hell just happened? So at this point, I'm sort of confused, astonished. My mind's just sort of drawn a blank. I'm a little bit annoyed that I was trying to have this intimate moment with this girl that I was into, and I was just interrupted by Adam. So I was annoyed about the whole thing, right? And now she's scared, and what's going on? There were no answers given here. So I walked up the hill, and I see Adam's car, and Adam's car he's got his lights on inside. And as I walk up the hill to the car park, he is actually in his car, with the music blaring. He's listening to heavy metal at the time. His music was blaring. His lights were on. His door was locked. And I'm like, what the hell's going on, right? So I knock on his door, and he opened it up. And we get inside. I get in the front. Alice gets in the back. And I turn the radio down. His lights are fully on. I'm like, what is going on? And I was like, dude, what are you doing? because at this point when I said to him, "Dude, what are you doing?" I actually thought that it was still him that interrupted us. Right? This is the narrative that my mind had defaulted to because it was the only one that made sense. And he had this weird look on his face, and he's like, "Oh," because he was just kind of really, he was a bit passive, and he was just like, "Oh, hey man, I was just listening to music. I was my doors were locked because I was just on the hill, and I went to take a piss because the toilets were locked. So I went to take a piss, and then after that, I turned around to look down to see where you guys were, and I thought I could come down there. But when I was looking down the hill by that tree, I thought I saw a baby crawling, and I turned away for 2 seconds, and I looked again, and it was just a plastic bag. My eyes must have been playing tricks on me. But I got spooked, so I'm in the car, and I just locked my doors and uh, just turned the music on. So basically, Adam had seen the exact same thing that I had seen. He saw a baby crawling, and that turned into a plastic bag. Okay, and yeah, so my take on it is that this thing shapeshifted, and it shapeshifted very swiftly, very quickly. And I wouldn't put it past it to do such a thing because I saw the way it moved. It had some level of ninja skills that I don't think is humanly possible. And so, given all of that, I thought, okay, it's not outside of the realm of possibility for this thing to disappear and appear at will or shapeshift. But one of the things I felt was that it wasn't extraterrestrial, it was terrestrial. It was from this Earth. It was adapted to planet Earth. That's the way it was moving, right? It moved like something from this planet, but it just has probably been here for millennia, right? Millennia, 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 millennia.
There once was a time where all was beautified, when the flora and the fauna both were free, when trees were the only ones to touch the sky, and fishes were the only ones at sea. There was a time before we formed. There was a calm before the storm. There was a time. Before the borders of today had cut the land, and prior to the dollar's rise to rule, before the orders of religion parted man, and prior to the scholar and the fool, there was a time before we formed. There was a calm before the storm. There was a time. There was a time. And if we keep it up this way, well, it's safe to say that soon we will be gone. Eventually the times will fade, the marks that we've made, and the world can move on. And we will cease to have been born. There will have never been a storm. There'll be a time. There will be a time. Be a time. there'll be a time.
I heard you interviewed, and it was the best story I've ever heard in my life. And like, paranormal podcasts are my whole pastime. No, it's legit my favorite story I've ever heard anyone tell ever, period. And I sent that episode to like everyone I know who I thought would be interested. Because I mean, you're doing this all the time, and just since I've been listening to your podcast, and especially in the last, I don't know how many days ago it was that you said we should chat, but since then, like, just synchronicities all day, every day. It's unreal. So I can't imagine your life. It must be insane. But I'm starting to like reframe a lot of the things that have happened to me, more around like fairies, where before I just didn't go there. And now when I'm looking back, I'm like, oh, that is such a fairy thing. Why haven't I never thought of that before? Because I do love fairies. I've always loved fairies. I have a fairy tattoo next to a Sasquatch tattoo. Fairies, 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 fairies.